Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is Dreamland, the animated special. The Doctor crosses off an item on his bucket list, Area 51. This episode is written by Phil Ford, directed by Gary Russell. It originally aired between the 21st and the 26th of November 2009. It's split up into 6 parts, with the first part being 12 minutes long and then the next 5 parts being 6 minutes long. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
This is Josh.
Hi, this is Brian.
Yo, it's Kelsey.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hey, this is Heather.
Hi there, this is Frank. Got my Billy White going.
In 1947, an alien spacecraft is shot down and crashes near Roswell, New Mexico. 11 years later, the Tardis arrives at Dry Springs, Nevada, where the Doctor visits a roadside diner looking for chili. He notices an odd piece of machinery, which the waitress says is from an alien spacecraft, or at least that's what her mom says to bring in the tourists. When the Doctor examines it with his sonic, it lights up and blows out all the diner's light bulbs. Cassie, the waitress, wonders if it's really an alien device. A customer named Jimmy says that it isn't the only strange thing happening lately. He swears he saw a space monster eating cattle at a nearby ranch.
Well, it's nice to see that the Cylons were in this. That ship reminded me of that right away.
I thought the same thing. Did you mention in your intro there that this was animated?
Yep.
Okay, there's another instance of me not listening to you.
Previously, we had the other animated special, Infinite Quest.
Yeah, I didn't see that one, but I'm going to use the term animation pretty loosely here.
Pretty loosely, yeah.
Yeah, we discussed that, yeah.
I did like the style that they were trying to go for with this animation, but as far as the quality of the animation, it felt a lot more like what people see in behind-the-scenes footage of what pre-visualization and visual or viz dev, pre-viz, whatever you want to call it. It was more like layout. Obviously, there were actually a few shots that were animated really well. It's probably the only real animator they had on the production, and those were the 3 shots that he did, or she. But overall, once I kind of got used to it, it didn't bother me so much. But it didn't bother me, but I was constantly distracted through the whole thing of the limitations. I did think, I know I'm speaking a little ahead for some of the plot stuff, but I did think they had some really interesting or well thought out saves or cinema tricks to avoid showing certain special effects and things the animation probably couldn't do. Clever. So I thought some of that was clever. Probably overall, with what their limitations probably seem to be, I thought they did a really good job. But on the other hand, too, it's like, why? But so this was broken up into
just like the Infinite Quest, this was made for kids.
I think this worked better as a whole.
Yes. I agree with you on that.
But about halfway through, I kind of hit pause to see how much more is this. I was like, wow, is this much more story? Okay, and
no,
then
there's not.
Well, no, but I kind of got interested in seeing like, all right, how's the rest of this gonna play out? But I, like Heather said, I loosely call this animation, and we'll talk more about opinions of the whole show later. I did like the designs. I thought I felt like I was watching David Tennant. I will say that.
Yeah, I really would have loved to have seen this episode acted out, personally. I mean, they could still do it if they really wanted to. I'd watch it.
Well, this was done in 2009, which had not the big budget that they have now. So Phil Ford, the writer, wanted to do things that he couldn't do live action. So that's why they set it in the 50s, a period piece. And they were inspired by like B movies from that period with the diner, the classic 50s American diner, Men in Black, UFOs, and aliens.
Following what Josh was saying, I also thought it was disjointed, partly because of the skips in animation, like you're saying, they just didn't need to show it, so it felt disjointed, and also, as it progressed, it was filmed in the 6-minute segments. So for me, it didn't flow when it needed to. It did do a better job than the other, but it still kept taking me out going, okay, this is a strange pacing.
Yeah, well, plus the pacing wasn't helped by the fact everyone, whether they were running or walking, was standing perfectly upright. Yeah, there was just a lot of roboticness to this. I did think the voice acting was pretty darn good. I mean, obviously
yeah.
David Tennant and Georgia Moffat we'll talk about. I have a question about her, but we'll get to that later. Oh, go ahead.
I like that we open with the song, the music, the Everly Brothers. All I have to do is dream. It sets the story in the time period without having to see much, and I just like that they got the rights to use that piece of music. It was.
That's where all their budget went.
I'm like, who's gonna know this? Not the kids.
I know, interesting that they made that choice.
Yeah.
Although I do have to say, I wish someone was there when the doctor comes in and says, hi, in a southern accent. I want someone next to him going, no, don't do that.
Yeah, right.
He has no companion.
He has no companion to stop him.
I want to know what happened in 1962 to the chili industry. I mean, his line was, the kind they made before 1962, so couldn't find anything on that. Obviously, he was looking for that piece of junk, whatever that alien technology was. Or did he just show up and just stumble into this?
He stumbled into it.
That's how I took it.
I did think that, any government agency that, the fact that that thing was on display so blatantly I almost felt more far-fetched than aliens actually existing and coming down to Earth.
How I rationalize that is it was inactive.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? Because right after
Yeah.
I thought that, they showed up because then they said it
Because it
has
got
been
activated by an alien, not a human. The doctor being the alien.
Did they say that?
I'm saying that there's no human technology.
Oh, that would have activated
Yes,
it.
correct.
Right.
Several men in black arrive to retrieve the ionic fusion bar, better known as the waitress's piece of junk. One of them won't take no for an answer, so the doctor, Jimmy, and Cassie escape in Jimmy's pickup truck. He drives them to see a giant footprint in the sand that the doctor says is from an alien insect called a viperox. Oh, and one of them just happens to be standing behind them. They run away just as a helicopter arrives and blows up the viperox. It's the U.S. Army with orders to bring them to Groom Lake Army Air Base, also known as Dreamland, but better known as Area 51. The doctor is absolutely thrilled. So that happened.
Yeah. That's where we get the title of the special, Dreamland, being the other word for Area 51, because when you would visit or stumble across Area 51, any visitors who weren't authorized to be there would have their minds wiped, and then they would remember it as a dream, and nobody would believe them. So that's
Is that
where
a thing?
Mm-hmm. It's floating around all the conspiracy theories like Majestic 12, Area 51, Roswell.
I thought he was calling it Dreamland because it was his dream to see it.
That could be it too. That's part of his bucket list. Also, Dreamland is a reference, could be a reference to the Edgar Allan Poe poem. That's another possibility.
Called what? Dreamland?
Dreamland.
About Area 51?
Now
He
that
was ahead
would
of
have
his
been-
time.
That would have been spooky.
I really like Jimmy. Does anyone else have thoughts on Jimmy?
I agree
At
with the
first I
doctor.
thought-
His name is Doctor, not Doc.
Yeah, he actually gets pretty annoyed about that, which I think is funny. He's
Yeah.
like, when are you going to stop calling me Doc?
Yeah, because the Doctor, in previous versions of himself, dislikes being called Doc. In, I think it's the first Doctor, doesn't like that, in the Time Meddler, and then in the Five Doctors, and then the Twin Dilemma, and then the Ultimate Foe.
Well, let's hope he never meets Bugs Bunny then.
Yeah, I thought Jimmy was good. It's tough in this social climate right now to get a comfortable grasp on what is like a stereotype, what is accurate, what is derogatory, because but he was a good character. It's funny to see the 50s, greaserness of him.
I liked his hair.
Yes.
It was great. But I'm more thinking about, did anybody look up the actor? Or Eugene, I know you must have.
Yep. So the character's full name is Jimmy Stockingwolf, and he's played by Tim Hauer. And this guy's done a lot of voiceover in video games.
I know what I was going to say. That I did feel that the two companions felt like companions. They didn't feel like, oh my God, what's going on? What is that? Who is this? But they had just enough of that and just enough of the type of personality that took charge, and they were surprised by things, but they didn't get thrown by them. I could see them being companions.
I agree, although I guess there was some kind of blooming romance between them, and the lack of facial expression or anything, I could barely tell that was happening.
Yeah.
This is how they did romance in the classic Doctor Who. All of a sudden, at the end of the episode, we're together. And that literally did happen to one of the Doctor's companions. Fourth Doctor had a companion at the end of an episode, an end of a serial. One of the people that they met, she says, I've fallen in love with him and I'm staying with him. And that was her last episode.
I'm glad you said that because I was thinking this had a feeling of the classic series more than the modern series. The setting, the way the dialogue went, and I like the flashbacks to him not liking the term doc being part of the classic doctors from, what do you say, the first Doctor?
Yes.
It's really interesting. Kelsey and I are currently watching through the 13th Doctor, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners are. And it's fun going between like a very, very modern take on Doctor Who and even this, which was only, well, I guess almost 20 years ago now.
Well, 10.
10 years ago.
Jeez, don't
And
do
this,
that to me.
which I guess is, yes. And this, which I guess is only about 10 years ago now. But just see like the different character pieces. I think even was it this episode or was it Waters of Mars that had the Houdini reference?
This one.
It was this one, and we had just watched another Houdini reference with the 13th Doctor. So if you're jumping around and watching different Doctors at different times, I think it gives you a little bit more of a perspective on how the Doctor grows and changes.
Mentioning the classic Doctors, the way that they wrote this, they wanted to be more cliffhangery in that aspect, so that's why you're feeling that vibe, even though they're broken up into 6-minute episodes.
I think that did keep me watching it, though, and it just kind of kept me curious, so it did work to a certain extent.
But it was very formulated in run, get caught, escape, run, get caught, escape.
Yeah, again, for kids. They're like, what's going to happen?
And I know we haven't gotten to much of it yet, but since this is a certain type of episode, I'll mention it. Like, how many times is that general or colonel going to pull out his gun and not use it no matter what happens in the room?
So many times.
They meet the man in charge, Colonel Stark, who tells them that they are going to have their minds wiped completely. They are tied up, and Stark releases the amnesia gas. Using Houdini tricks, literally, the Doctor escapes his restraints, shuts off the gas, and frees Cassie and Jimmy. They use a ventilation shaft to escape the room, but an alarm sounds. They run and hide in Lab 51, where they find a female gray alien locked behind a glass wall. Before they can do anything, soldiers find them. They run, but are captured again.
Okay, I just want to say, first of all, that the Doctor willingly, no one ever cuffs them or anything. I mean, the Doctor doesn't even try to not get strapped to this thing in the memory chamber.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't see what happens in between. We just, all of a sudden, it cuts to them strapped to tables. Not chairs, not like, any other thing. Just a slab with some cuffs on it.
That is true. That is true. It is one of those cut moments, and the slabs are very Frankenstein. But I just remember thinking, like, why didn't he prevent this from happening in the first place? But it's whatever.
Because that's part of the typical 1950s sci-fi. They even had the poison valves in the room, so the person who's activating it might be caught in them.
You see, I haven't seen a lot of B movies, so maybe I'm not the right person to talk about this episode.
Yeah,
Educate me.
Most of, actually, this whole episode has the storytelling logic of a 1950s B movie. Right down to what I was just saying, that the guy never uses his gun, but he keeps threatening to use it.
Right.
Don't move or I'll shoot. And the guy moves. He's like, I'm going to shoot.
And also his reference where he's like, oh, I love this time period. They haven't seen Die Hard or Alien or Die Hard 2 or Aliens because we're going to escape from using the ventilation shaft.
And then the whole bit at the end, that's the big climax about the queen laying eggs, is right from Aliens.
Yes. And to break the timeline once again, the 12th Doctor didn't know about the movie Alien. You have a movie about things hugging your face. Mm-hmm. That's racist.
Yeah, and Last Christmas?
Yeah, Last Christmas. Yeah. No wonder they
Do we
invaded.
establish in Doctor Who lore that he loses some memories when he regenerates?
Yes. In... Well, I don't think it's like a canon thing. It's more writer by writer.
Is this the point where the 10th Doctor says, "Take me to your leader," Alonzi?
That was...
Pat before
Earlier.
that?
That was right before. Yeah, that was when
it's-
they got on the helicopter.
It's another reference to it's just an ongoing thing. He's always "Take me to your leader." Like Eccleston says, "I've always wanted to say that," and then Tennant says it in somewhere else, and he's like, "You already said that." And then Colonel Stark says, "Who's that?" rather than Doctor Who. I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
like,
there was a
I
little
was
gimmick
like,
like
this is
that.
where this is leading to, and then it takes me in a different place. Another thing to set the world in the 1950s is that I noticed that the U.S. soldiers are using M14 rifles, and those came in service around this time because they were discontinued in the Vietnam War.
I wish the alien was a little bit more Doctor Who.
No, I disagree. I love that decision.
I like it because I think this is the first time we've seen a gray alien in Doctor Who and not an alien costume.
But this is the whole thing. This was the typical 50s sci-fi,
Yeah.
so it fits.
By the way, the term gray alien, meaning big-headed,
Big eyes,
big eyes,
lanky.
that's an
Yeah.
X-Files term, isn't it?
No, it's a term about that phenomenon that X-Files used.
That it existed before the
Yeah.
X-Files? Because I had never heard it, 'cause it was always little green men.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was a term
Yeah.
that X-Files made famous.
Oh, okay.
Because I think it's used in all those alien abduction stories. The gray
Greys,
alien,
yeah,
the Greys are
Greys.
getting me.
Even before
I
X-Files?
think so.
Oh, okay.
so.
I mean,
Because I never heard that, because it was always little green men.
but then they're not. They're gray. So, yeah,
Well,
yeah, you
they're
know.
fake. And also, let's face it, the aliens of Area 51 are the Ferengi.
That's right.
I think the animation being so like our typical gray alien is probably half like cost, because they seem pretty simple to animate. Josh, I don't know if you have more insight than like a human looking thing that has extras.
I don't think that mattered. I mean, I think
Okay.
it's just basically once it's built, it's built.
Okay.
Yes, it didn't take as much sculpture to make the rig, the model, but I don't
And
think
they are neat set up against the Viper rocks that are so
that are
different.
so complex.
Yeah. So I think it was cool to see those two. And since it is animated, we don't need the more humanoid,
Right.
like actor parts to fit into
Yeah.
an alien costume.
It probably was easier to animate, obviously, but I think that's just a benefit of what they were going for. Like, they probably said, "Oh, and we'll save a little money because it won't take as long to make the gray aliens." Because man, there were a lot of pieces on that other alien. There was one scene when he's yelling at the colonel. What is it, Colonel? Is it Colonel? Where it was animated quite well and everything was moving and all that. And again, I was like, "Oh, is the whole thing gonna kick in now? Like, this is where they spent all their money at the end of the episode?" But no, it was just one or two shots.
I think my favorite, though, is when they are strapped to the table and you get the close-up of his wrist, in
Oh,
the
yeah.
restraint, and it's literally just moves a little bit, moves a little bit, moves a little bit, moves a little bit,
And then boink.
and then I'm out, because it's a Houdini trick. It's like they didn't even bother to animate
Yeah.
any reason why it opens up.
I thought that the Sonic was gonna drop into his
Yeah,
hand.
so did
That's
I.
what I thought.
Speaking of the Viprox, the sound that they make when they're blinking is the same one from the Raxacorical Falbatorians, if you remember that.
I recognize that.
Yeah.
It's a very distinct sound, and I was like, oh, I know this.
Who did the voice of the head guy, the head alien?
David Warner?
It was David Warner. I thought so.
The Master
actually.
Computer Program.
Yeah, Sark.
End of
End of
line.
line.
Who was just in Mary Poppins, The Returns.
Oh yeah.
He's great. In Stark's office, the Colonel is talking to a Viperox named Aslog, who threatens Earth if Stark fails him. Prisoners are in a hangar containing an alien flying saucer. The Doctor opens its doors with his sonic, and they fly away, but soon they crash in the desert. Back at the base, Stark and Aslog wonder who on Earth could fly an alien ship.
I get a kick out of that. That's the Doctor Who stuff I like. When they're like, when the stupid regular people are like, "What's going on?" You know, what makes anything that makes the Doctor seem special, besides himself saying he's special. I like.
Their escape from the soldiers at this point, I remember that was one of those spots where it felt like they just kind of cut away and now
Yeah.
they're escaping
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
going
convenient.
up the spaceship.
This whole
Yeah.
episode is another example of Doctor Who's running motif of ineffectual soldiers. Whatever they're shooting at, hey, you stop running after. It's funny what Colonel Stark's argument was. How can they defeat the might of the U.S. Army? Well, if this is the U.S. Army, my cats can defeat you.
This is when I did not like the animation. It's because of that. It's because, let's sonic the spaceship open and run for it, and you don't get to see any of the trying to shoot them or whatever. It's just sort of anybody would be able to shoot them at that point blank range, and stop them from getting on the ship. It just seemed the way the animation was visually didn't work.
Nah.
But then they were like, don't shoot, you'll shoot the ship.
True.
It's like, whoa, you don't want to damage that, like a bullet is going
And then
to
don't they send Jetson to shoot it down?
Yes.
Don't shoot it with bullets. We have to shoot it with missiles.
But that's a different pay grade.
Yes.
The people who are the security there can't get in trouble for shooting the ship.
Yeah, right. It's not our. That's out of
got
our.
it.
Because my thinking too is if they didn't have full-fledged animators on this thing, to shoot a live-action actor bending down and pointing a gun takes however long that takes, but to have it animated is could very well take 5 times as long. So if they didn't have a lot of time, they were working under extreme limitations. And I'm sure the idea was like you said in the beginning, let's write an episode that we can't afford to make
Live action.
live action. So we can have spaceships, we can have as many aliens as we want, we can have all this stuff, but we can't afford to have someone walk correctly
Right.
or sit correctly or hold this thing or run correctly or pick something up correctly. Like most, especially live action filmmakers, when then starting to use computer generated imagery or animation, don't realize that it's the simple things that you can't do. They probably thought like, we can do all this stuff, but then you realize just walking seems fake. There was this one down shot of the Doctor and the gray alien where their feet are sliding all over
on
the
floor.
place because
they're in the vault.
because they animate a walk that just gets cycled, and if they don't pace it out right, then and chances are when they originally looked at the previs of that, it didn't have any textures on it. It was just flat gray, so you couldn't notice that his feet were slow. I mean, all these things that when they're just like, we can do all this stuff for less money except walking.
Now the planes are here. They are the F-100 Super Sabres, which again were around this time, so I found that they did at least do the research in the periods of military equipment.
The jets, is that what you said?
So the jets and the rifles are accurate to this time.
They would have had to. I imagine there's not a lot of Brits who are super up on this kind of thing. America 1950s. I have no idea what the 50s was like in England. Do you guys? I know what the 60s was like, thanks to Austin Powers, but...
No, I don't know. It's probably
Something with the
similar.
Beatles.
Yeah.
To me, they just look like the jet that tries to shoot the Enterprise down in Tomorrow's Yesterday.
The three walk to a deserted town where a Viprox drags Jimmy underground. The Doctor and Cassie follow them to find Jimmy has been cocooned to the wall. As Cassie breaks him out, the Doctor talks with Aslak and is just about to find out why the aliens are here when Cassie throws a lantern at Aslak, setting the ground on fire. In the chaos, the three run and find the egg chamber with the huge queen that's laying the eggs for their army, and she is not amused. They run again, hop in a minecar, and Temple of Doom it until they ram through an exit and land in the desert. So this is the alien reference with all the eggs and the big queen chamber. You mentioned it verbally, and now we see it. So I thought that was cool that they paid it off.
It really grossed me out. Really grossed me out. Ugh. And also, I love the Doctor's reference to when we say she is not amused.
Yes, all
he
the
says
way back to
that's
tooth and claw.
Yeah, and he says, that's a theme with me in royalty or something like that.
Yeah.
I did like that. They keep referencing how the Viperox can hear things, and so that's how he knows he's not human. He can hear two hearts. And I love the Doctor's response of, and listen to them, I'm not scared of you. Or he says, listen to their rhythm, I'm not scared of you. was like,
Yeah,
oh,
that was
that's
such a cool line.
it's
I
a
was like,
really cool line.
Yeah.
There's actually a good number of moments like that in this. That's why I kept getting sucked in when there was Doctor stuff going on and with David Tennant's performance and even the design of him, not necessarily the animation, some of the animation, but and then all of a sudden some low production quality thing happened. But this definitely felt like a Doctor Who episode, one of the lesser thans, but the lesser thans, those are my neighbors who don't do much. But there were a lot of nice moments like that.
Even coming into this abandoned town, I thought it was very cinematic. Like they put the camera kind of behind things, like behind debris, and
Yeah.
seeing them from a distance, which is always, a telltale sign that something's abandoned. But it was good. It was a cinematic, and I don't know, how hard or easy that is to do, but
That's actually, I mean, once you can put the camera anywhere.
Right.
Moving cameras tend to be more expensive because every frame needs to be re-rendered. But the harder part is the animation and the different effects. I did appreciate a lot of their camera choices and all that ideas because, yeah, you can put the camera anywhere. Mm-hmm. I was gonna say was when she sets the ground on fire. That was the best effect in the whole thing because it was obviously stock footage of real fire.
They meet the Men in Black, or the Alliance of Shades mop-up team of robots, whose job it is to protect primitive planets from alien intervention. The Doctor monologues until Jimmy's grandfather shows up and destroys the robots with some arrows. Night Eagle has seen men like this before and knew where to shoot them. They follow him to a cave where they meet a male gray alien named Ravesh Mantalox, who wants to find his wife, Saruba Valek. It was her ship that crashed near Roswell 11 years ago. Their species is at war with the Viperox, and Ravesh came looking for her as soon as he could. As the Doctor promises to get Ravesh and Saruba home, Stark arrives and arrests them. I did like the animation of the gray aliens, like totally, bandanas around their
Yeah,
head,
I
and
did like that.
bandages, and the guns blasting, I just thought that was funny.
I did. Oh god, that scene must have been. That was probably the most expensive scene to make. But so there's this very highly advanced society with weapons and, like you said, bandanas, but no clothes at all on any alien in the whole thing.
They're from a very temperate world.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
I thought the Men in Black were more of Mr. Anderson from
Yeah.
Matrix.
Oh, well, this
And
whole
really,
episode-
Alliance of Shades wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
Really? That one was a bit too much for me.
Well, I think this episode is very aware of itself.
It is aware and it's more tongue-in-cheek, but I just wasn't into it, so it made it more silly than fun.
This was another animation point that I think I felt what Josh was saying, also with the editing. Like we have our lead agent, his hand transforms into a gun, and then we cut away and come back, and all of a sudden everyone has the
else's,
gun
yeah.
hands, because that was probably a lot easier to cut
some way,
and switch
yeah.
to than.
I got a kick out of the idea that Men in Black are robots, but then so when Night Eagle and his crew take out the Men in Black, that was cool, but they secretly did it from afar, about 10 feet behind them, like that.
Right.
The way they appeared, and again, that's just like it's CG. They could have put them almost anywhere, but they ended up putting them 10 feet behind them.
A little thing that I noticed was the lead Men in Black, his eyes on the sunglasses, you could see his eyes come through. So I thought that was a nice touch. And then it reminded me that happened, I think, earlier with Cassie when they're strapped in the amnesia chamber, whatever.
No, it's when
later?
they run. No, it's earlier than that. It's when they run out of the diner and he's standing in the diner's doorway.
No, it's in Cassie's eyes. You see something, and I can't remember where it is now. I just remember
Reflection
seeing.
in her eyes.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I thought that was a nice touch that they didn't need to
I
do.
didn't catch that.
me neither.
And I can't remember where it is now, but it happened both.
Can we
these
talk
characters.
about the actress who plays her?
Cassie is played by Georgia Moffat,
We've heard that name before. haven't we?
and we have seen her before as Jenny in the Doctor's Daughter.
Who's also David Tennant's wife.
And
Yeah, that was my question. Like, whose daughter is she?
the fifth Doctor, Peter Davison,
Right, but why does she have the last name of Moffat?
because Peter Davison is his stage name.
Oh, his last name is Moffat?
So yeah.
And he's not related to Stephen Moffat?
Nope.
There are way too
There's
many
way too many
coincidences on this
names in
production.
this.
Yeah. That's a little crazy. Unless Moffat's like the British Smith.
I think
Please.
Smith is the British Smith, but yeah, there's
Yeah.
probably a lot less names in Britain than there are elsewhere. He was born
Peter Malcolm.
Throwing my phone at Eugene.
Peter Malcolm Gordon Moffat. So Davison is his stage name.
The whole robot hand thing was exactly like the automatons in the very first episode of New Who, Rose. And that's immediately what I thought of when that happened.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought of too. So it's like another thing that's referencing classic. They are taken to the operation room where they find out that Stark is working with Aslak over a common interest, Ravesh and Saruba. Aslak reveals that Ravesh has developed a genetic weapon targeting the Viprox. Stark says that the weapon can be modified to attack his enemies, the Soviet Union, instead. Suddenly, the main Men in Black robot enters the room with the ionic fusion bar for Aslak. It seems Aslak had the time to conveniently reprogram the robot. The Doctor figures out that the ionic fusion bar is really the genetic weapon. Now Aslak can save his people by reprogramming it to kill Russians instead. But the Doctor sonics the robot, grabs the weapon, and runs to the roof. Stark follows.
I like how they took that running theme of the Doctor doesn't, extinguish, doesn't commit genocide except for his own, and put it in here. I think that's a very big part of the show.
It's a consistent
Yeah.
with the rest of the live action stuff.
Yeah.
But where it's a little weak is that he keeps making references to the Viperox will change or might be able to change in the future
They
instead
evolve.
of just for the sake of not committing genocide.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. At first he says it's possible, but towards the end of the episode he makes it sound like he knows.
Yeah.
So yeah. Takes a little wind out of the sails a little bit.
This really was the most terrifying part of the show, about trying to change the genetics, because they had mentioned that it's not just the Viperox on Earth, it's all over the place. So it's not just the Russians in Russia. I mean, it's anybody who had any kind of Russian, ancestry. It just, to me, that was really just a terrifying
I didn't even think about that.
idea that, we had in the 50s, but that is so prevalent now.
And also, too, if you think about it, like, they knew about DNA, but they didn't really understand genetics like they do today, because Colonel Stark probably had some Russian in him, especially in that bathhouse.
Okay. He's obviously watching a different version.
It's a different dreamland.
Yeah. The Doctor convinces Stark to trust him and not the Viperox. Aslak bursts onto the roof, says that they will tear the Earth to shreds, and flies away. Back inside, they find out that Aslak attacked Ravesh, who is near death. Saruba can save him with equipment from her ship, but it's located down in the vault, Ark of the Covenant style. She and the Doctor enter the vault, where they battle Scorpius flies, a giant swarming brain. They run, hide in a box, and escape with a device from Saruba's ship.
This is my favorite pun of the thing. The Doctor, after they get out of the hangar, says, Remember, some men are born great. Others have crates thrust upon them.
That was great.
I was like, what is
That
this
whole
doing here?
escape was great.
And it also reminded me of Metal Gear Solid, the video game where you're hiding in the box to avoid the Russian guards. I don't know.
My favorite line in the show, and what did he say? That you always, what? In case you ever have to escape in a box? What was it?
Always count your steps.
Always count your steps in case you have to escape in a box. That was a very Doctor moment. But one of the biggest annoyances, again, with the filmmaking that I had in this, was in this moment when, what's the name of the Viperox? The
Aslak?
Aslak. He shoots up in the sky when he's got a gun drawn on him, and it looks like he hightailed it out of there, and they cut to, he's like 5 feet above them.
You know why? Because that was the end of the cliffhanger for one episode.
Oh, and it cut.
And
then we came back.
That's why.
All right. Well, yeah, see, that's funny. But again, too, it was another instance of this guy's got a gun on him. Don't move. And then, unless you run, unless you move, then I don't be able to shoot you.
And I just always like the Sonic being used as a screwdriver.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
always
I didn't
nice.
even think of that.
Yeah.
But this was just almost a little filler for to have the alien flies attack them. It's just...
Well,
Oh,
because
Because of the small 6-minute episode.
that-
It's kind of,
yeah,
why
but you
are
know
we doing
why they
this
did
again?
that? They did that because they could have a swarm of alien flies and have the gray alien run off screen, find her ship, search through her ship, get the device, and run back. In the meantime, he's just fighting an alien swarm. It was much cheaper. They had to be
Again,
careful.
it's for kids. They're going to be like, ooh,
Yeah.
new monster.
Yeah. But
Well, I just the first time I watched it, and it was like, what is going on? And then when she runs up and says, "I have the device," it's like,
Right.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
I think the whole scenario would have bothered me more if the humor in that section wasn't so good. I mean, the humor was so great that I was like, I don't even care. I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I gotta say, a lot of the banter in this whole episode felt very like a Doctor Who episode. Mm-hmm.
No, the dialogue is strong. It's very strong in this.
I don't agree. I don't think the delivery is all that strong because some of the people don't have the history of being a voiceover actor.
I didn't find it to be too bad. I thought David Tennant did a great job with the voice acting. I didn't feel like he missed a beat. But
In the defense,
in
their defense, I mean, David Tennant knew exactly who his character was, and he's
Yeah.
played it a million times. And these other two people are working with animation that is virtually expressionless.
Well, they don't. All that
Which is-
voiceover comes first.
But I'm saying, but that doesn't change how it ends up coming out after. They
Oh,
acted
yeah,
it
yeah,
the way
yeah.
that they imagined it in their head. And if the
Right.
way they imagined it in their head was not the way they animated it, there's really not much
Absolutely.
they could do about it.
You could save a pretty bad performance with great animation, and then vice versa as well. You can kill
Right.
it with toaster face.
Cassie and Jimmy are sent to find the TARDIS. The Viprox eggs are hatching and the new army attacks the town. Stark's forces attack the Viprox. The Viprox attack Jimmy's truck carrying the TARDIS. At the Operations Center, Aslak confronts Stark. Jimmy and Cassie meet up with the Doctor and Saruba. They use the TARDIS to re-enter the base. Saruba heals Ravesh, who activates the device because the Doctor has a plan. Aslak follows the Doctor into the TARDIS and threatens Jimmy's life. The Doctor uses the TARDIS sound system, literally, to drive the Viprox off Earth completely.
I mean, he basically because the weapon was supposed to like disintegrate them or whatever, but he altered it so
kill
it
'em.
just hurt their ears.
Just annoyed them, yeah.
Right.
As a sonic weapon.
So it's basically like, this is your final warning before I make you go away.
It's a sonic weapon, and that hurts.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So cut to epilogue. All the Viperox are on their planet going, what?
The thing with the Viprox, the new hatchlings attacking the town, definitely reminded me of all those 1950s B movies.
Oh, yeah.
Of like an alien something.
Them.
Yeah, or like the ants attacking. Like you could tell, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like really.
They
Fake.
use real bugs.
Yeah, and like the
Just zoomed
salamander
in.
lizard in one of them, and the tarantula. It just reminded me of that.
And also with some of those movies, there are no townspeople.
Yes.
It's
Just like-
mysteriously empty because, we don't want to pay for extras.
And it was a quick turnaround, but I liked Ravesh, giving up his wanting revenge against the whole Viperox.
Yeah.
You gave me back my life, you gave me back the life of my love, so okay, I'll agree with you.
Yeah. I thought that was a good motivation. Like, yeah, dude, you were just on the brink of death, and not only did he bring you back to life, but he put you back with your wife.
Although, I mean, it's good, it's a kid's show, so of course, just saying that revenge is bad is a good
Right.
thing. But I do have to say that when the Viperox ship takes off, I wouldn't have minded if Harriet Jones shot him.
Yes, we know who you are.
We know what you'll do.
I want to know if the rest of the Viperox in the universe also heard it.
I don't think so.
The whole device to begin with was to affect all of them across the universe.
Yeah, but he said he altered it for just the ones on Earth.
It's certainly implied that it's just on Earth.
Especially if they're running away from it, that means that it should get weaker or they should be able to run away.
Later, the Doctor gives the genetic weapon to Stark because it will protect Earth from any future Viperox invasions. He explains that he had converted the device on an ultrasonic level to greatly annoy the Viperox rather than kill them. The TARDIS was just an amplifier. Ravesh and Saruba fly off in their ship. Cassie and Jimmy watch as the TARDIS disappears.
Here at the end, we have another consistent thing about the Doctor. Colonel Stark salutes him, and he's like, "Don't salute me."
Don't, yeah.
Right, yeah.
And, don't give Stark the device. Just, don't.
I didn't really see it as turning over a new leaf as much as like, oh, well, what I want's not going to work, so I'll just do this then.
I just want the episode that takes place in the 60s where we see all the Russians in Moscow go, "What's that noise?" and try to dig underground.
In Russia, it digs you.
It did seem at the end that Stark had turned over the new leaf and now he's the good guy, the way it was written.
Yeah,
like
but it was such a
the doctor said,
simple turn.
Russians are not that bad people anymore.
Right.
And, so it's kind of everything wrapped up in a nice little bow.
I think Stark is the worst character in this episode.
Yes.
Yes.
He starts off extremely stereotypical and he doesn't get any better. Like,
Yeah,
he changes his mind on a dime and he has. I don't know. I just don't like him.
Yeah.
But I guess it fits. It fits the motif. I get it.
All right. So we mentioned Georgia Moffat being Cassie Rice, and then Tim Howard being Jimmy Stockingwolf. Then we have Lisa Bowerman, who voices Suruba Valak, and she was previously in Doctor Who as Kara, a cheetah person in Survival, the last serial of the classic series.
Oh.
And then we mentioned David Warner being Lord Aslock. We mentioned him as being in Tron, Dillinger, and Sark. And he's also involved in Doctor Who audio dramas.
He was also. What other time travel movie was he in?
Time and time again.
Time after time.
Time after time. That's what it is.
Time after time and Time Bandits.
That's right. He was the Lord of Evil in Time Bandits.
Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper in Time After Time.
Such a good
Malcolm McDowell.
Such
Yes.
a good
Yeah.
movie.
Oh.
Steam Virgin.
When we first saw it, it was a week before the time frame of the movie Time After Time. So when we first saw it, it was actually taking place in the
really?
future.
Stuart Milligan plays Colonel Stark, and we will see him again. He will play Nixon.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Stuart Milligan also does a bunch of anime voiceovers, so that's where I recognized his voice from. You can look up, it's just a lot, like Pat Labor and a bunch of other things. Clark Peters plays Night Eagle, the grandfather of Jimmy. He is Harry from John Wick, and he was also in The Wire. Nicholas Rowe plays Ravesh Mantelax, and we know him best from Young Sherlock Holmes. He's also in The Crown as Colville, or Cornelville, whatever. Peter McGinnis plays Mr. Dread, which is the main Men in Black guy. And he was Gregor in Alien 3.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
The spaceship that the Androvax use is going to be seen again in the Sarah Jane Adventures. It's the Prisoner of the Jadoon, I believe. And Mr. Dread, the main... The Alliance of Shades, he will return also in the Sarah Jane Adventures with the Vault of Secrets, and so you get to kind of see him live action as opposed to computer animated. All right, final thoughts on Dreamland. Let's start with Heather.
Okay. I actually loved the 1950s, the stereotypes, the alien. I loved all of that. I thought it was really clever in that it wasn't clever at all, if that makes any sense. And I knew nothing about this episode going into it, so animation and restrictions aside, I enjoyed it.
If you're a completist and want to see everything, go for it. Personally, I did not like it, and I don't think you need to hunt it out to try and find it.
Hold on, Tony.
What does your cat think?
The cat's pissed
The
at
cat does not like my opinion, so not for everybody.
The views of Heather's cat do not reflect.
Yeah, the animation style is a little hard to get over, especially if you're not expecting it, and when you first see people's faces, it's not what we're used to. Story-wise, it has some good one-liners and some interesting things. I don't see myself rewatching this if I'm in a Doctor Who mood, but yeah, if you're a kid or if you want to see something different, it's certainly different than what we normally get from Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think our nephew, Auburn, would enjoy this because of the big monsters. And the fact that it's a cartoon. He's 6, so I don't... He's not sick, he's 6. He's also sick right now, but he's 6. And I don't think he would hold the bad seed computer animation
Even when
against...
kids notice that stuff, they just like, oh, it's not as good, but they still enjoy the thing.
So I agree with Frank. Like, this is not one that I think you have to seek out and watch. So just go.
I'm apathetic to this episode. I don't like it. I don't there's nothing there to dislike for me either. It doesn't make me angry. So I don't know. Watching it for the podcast was fine.
I think like, who was it? Frank was saying like for a completist, it's enjoyable. Like I enjoyed it once I was like, okay, this is what we're gonna be watching. I'm kind of 50-50 about it. I enjoyed just as much as I didn't. Don't know if that leaves me exactly apathetic because I just the fact that there's more Doctor Who out there to watch and have.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah, that I enjoyed that, and I thought the jokes were good. I thought the story was pretty good, and the shortcomings story-wise, I felt were so like making fun of itself, or it knew what it was doing. I didn't feel they failed at it. It was just like, yeah, this is what we're doing. It's kind of kitschy. I kind of enjoyed it. It was a period piece, so I like what Heather was saying about it as well. And I really, in overall, maybe I'm 51% liking it because the counter steps, because you never know when you have to escape in a box. I think that just wins me over.
And he had that whole place mapped out.
Yeah.
So like you, Josh, you are 50-50. I'm
51-50.
I'm 50.
51-49.
Oh, 51-49. I'm also an idiot.
Maths.
He can draw, but he can't add.
I'm 50s.
You're nifty 50s.
Wow.
I'm 1950s. This one, I remember when it first came out, I didn't really enjoy it. But then for the podcast, going back, this is better than the Infinite Quest, the other animated.
Yes, I will agree with that too.
The other animated special in this run of Doctor Who. So when I watched it again recently for this episode, I found myself enjoying it more because I think my expectations were tempered properly. And the voice acting is better. The story flows better than Infinite Quest. And it's amazing that they got David Warner and Nicholas Rowe and all these people.
And I just looked up
Surprised.
Clark Peters. He's a big actor from The Wire. Like, so
Yeah.
he's no slouch.
So I was surprised that they got the caliber, I guess, of voice actors for this. I just wish the animation was up to par with that. I'm a fan of just animation in general. Like the first really computer animated show I remember was Reboot.
Yeah, Reboot was pretty good.
It was rudimentary, but for the time,
it was more advanced than this.
Yeah. So
This really just suffered from they got all the computer tech people, but they barely got any animators.
yeah, so I think that there was just that part missing, and they did well for what they did with a
Yeah.
budget. So I can't fault them for that. And I like all this Area 51 conspiracy stuff. Like Dark Skies is one of my favorite shows. That's kind of came off of the X-Files popularity, and that was a short-lived. So it reminded me a lot of that with Majestic 12 and like Project Blue Book. And I think at one point they mentioned that the downed spaceship is a fallen angel, which is another code word for a UFO crashing. So that stuff I enjoyed.
Oh, sorry. The whole thing was called Project Fallen Angel.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing that kind of cements this for me really is the use of all the music that we've heard previously in this run. Like
it was repurposed
yeah.
score because
Yeah.
I thought the music was really
it's
good.
really good. And they used the Blink suite a lot for that creepy, like something's going to happen. And, and I felt that they did a good job of sprinkling that throughout the episode.
But I was surprised how much it felt like an actual episode.
Yeah.
Once I was into it, I kept expecting it to feel like Infinite Quest. Like, I can't follow this. This seems silly, but it's sort of interesting. But it felt like an episode.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm more in favor of it this time around as opposed to when I first experienced it. But it's definitely for somebody who's a completist, because you can leave this. You don't need it for your, let's just say, live action run. If you're just doing the live action, you don't need this. But it's a nice little bonus if you are interested.
And I do feel it fits great into the Tennant specials when he was off after Donna.
When he was running away after Waters of
Yes.
Mars, he definitely was on the lam, running the
Yeah.
very
Right,
first
although if you this coming right off of Waters as Mars, he's very lighthearted here. And that other one,
Yeah, so that to me doesn't fit, but everything else does, like what we were mentioning about the classic Who references and all. I mean, they even mentioned the Tooth and Claw with royal. I have this effect on royalty. So it's weird how this sits better in the timeline, the canon timeline, than Infinite Quest does for its
yeah,
season 3.
Infinite Quest feels almost like fan fiction.
Anyway, that wraps up Dreamland. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Allburn.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
Comment on our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
Also listen to us on your Amazon Echo by enabling a podcast skill.
All of our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell.
Sydney Newman.
Verity Lambert.
Ron Grainer.
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
Are we okay?
We will be in a second.
Okay, you let us
First
know.
of all, my lights went out. I don't know.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
I was like, what happened?
Oh no.
Do you want to check
The cat
that?
did
Get out, just get out, just run, just go.
But my power's still on.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Do you want to check
Go,
on that?
run.
Yeah, check
run,
on that
just-
real quick.
Let me check my other light switch.
Yeah, that's more important that
Go
you're
down
okay.
to the basement with a flashlight that has loose batteries.
Well, all the power works, but the lights don't. No,
If you need to do anything, just please do it.
no, I'll just sit in the dark.
All
It's
right.
fine.
Are the
It's
lights
about
in
to
your
get.
whole
It's about
apartment
to be
off?
right here.
At least we're watching your back.
Yeah.
that's right.
Now I'm really scared.
Oh, no.
It's fine for now.
All right.
That's good. That's very Blair Witch looking. That's good.
Don't say that to her. It will freak you.
Well, here's a question for our listeners. Which one of us is a professional animation director?
I'm gonna go get a cookie.
Can you bring me one?
Yes.
Wait, now I really do want a cookie.
Where'd you go, Heather? I brought it to you.
Was she there?
That was for Heather, Allburn.
Oh, here you go.
You. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I got my own cookies. I'll sit in my dark kitchen and eat them alone. My cat. Cookie. Can you hear me crunching?
Yes, that I can hear.
What's that called? Those type of videos where it's just people audio.
ASMR.
So this is our ASMR
I
break.
don't get it.
I do.
This is our ASMR video. We're gonna be doing this later on. Welcome to this week. Doctor Who ASMR.
You guys stop. I am ASMR sensitive and you're going to put me to sleep.
I am now gonna take a sip from my straw.
That's a terrible sound. You know nothing about how this is done.
Welcome to amateur ASMR.
Back when toys were toys and boys were boys.
Oh, good lord.
That's gonna be your sign off.
ASMR from now on.
It's fine if you want me to be unconscious.
You already got the lighting for it.
Right?